The Batman IP clearly isn't going anywhere. While Arkham Knight may have been the end of what we know of as the Arkham trilogy in the Batman universe, and with that, the end of a certain era of Batman games in a sense, it doesn't look like Warner Bros. Games is even close to done with that world, as Warner Bros. Montreal's Gotham Knights is looking to exist in the DC universe with a similar look and feel as the Arkham games, yet at the same time starting its own thread of it, with a bit of a shift of emphasis onto different characters and a different type of game that certainly has a shot at not only keeping the iconic DC IP alive and thriving, but also planting a new flag in a slightly different action subgenre with Gotham Knights. A quick note before we move forward, please consider subscribing and enabling all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. And while you're at it, also, please click the like button if you enjoy the video. It really helps us out. And with that out of the way, let's begin. One thing that fans of the Arkham games will definitely notice is the darker, grittier look to Gotham Knights that the Arkham games had in spades. Gotham Knights does seem to be taking its foot off the pedal a little bit in that regard, with splashes of color here and there that liven things up a bit, but overall it looks pretty similar, and the moment-to-moment gameplay seems to follow suit as well. Whether or not this will amount to something that feels a little too safe or something that feels comfortably familiar will probably depend on the player, but I think at this point we have more reason to think Warner Bros. Montreal knows what they're doing than not. The city looks big and populated, as driving around on the streets of Gotham looks as chaotic as it should be, with people running out of the way and trash floating about the city. Moment-to-moment combat also should look familiar, with the systems that the original Arkham games pioneered and polished off well before. Again though, it does look like they know not to play it too safe with the systems of the Arkham games, as there are lots of different attacks and styles that can be utilized depending on the character that you play, which gracefully leads me to my next point: multiple characters. This is definitely one of Gotham Knights' strongest elements. In this game, you can play Batgirl, Robin, Red Hood, and Nightwing, and take advantage of all of their various styles and unique abilities. A nice dose of icing on top of that cake is that you can play through the main campaign either solo or co-op with somebody else. I'm not sure which element I like better, the ability to play the main characters and give the game 4 distinct flavors, or the fact that you can do the whole thing with somebody else that alters the combat and makes missions that much more fun. I'm glad that both of these elements exist in the game though, because it not only sets it apart from the Arkham games stylistically, but also creates a unique experience from the narrative action-adventure genre entirely that we rarely see. When a game does co-op right, it can greatly enhance the experience and add untold amounts of replayability. Games like Dead Space 3 certainly had their issues, but were made exponentially more fun with the addition of thoughtful co-op modes that didn't just plop multiple characters in the same situation, but rather allowed the addition of multiple players to create a different shade of the same experience that could either enhance the main playthrough or add value in making multiple playthroughs of the same campaign. Gotham Knights seems to have a handle on this in a way that, say, the recent Avengers game somewhat missed the mark on. Here, there are finishing moves that can only be performed with 2 people playing together. Boss battles change dynamically with the types of attacks that a character like, say, Mr. Freeze might use depending on how many players are attacking him, and even what levels they are. Which definitely speaks to the attention to detail that Warner Bros. Montreal is seemingly giving the game. While this game could very well be experienced in a similar way to how the Arkham games were, and there would be absolutely nothing wrong with that if that's how you want to play it, to have those options of introducing another character into your campaign, or playing it with different heroes introduces a nice depth to the experience that the previous Arkham games, and most other action games similar to this, just don't have. Another element that definitely seems to be in line with our expectations of this IP at this point is the overall look of the game. Now, I definitely touched on the aesthetic similarities earlier, but I'm actually talking about just overall graphics and detail right now. Most of the footage that we've seen so far is, according to Montreal, pre-alpha footage, so while some of the faces might look a little soft and some of the special effects perhaps a little flat, I think for pre-alpha footage, this is looking pretty nice and definitely up to snuff with at least Arkham Knight on last-gen consoles. It's also reasonable to assume that because of all the different characters, how big and full Gotham City is going to be this time around, and the addition of online co-op, there is a possibility that the general fidelity of the graphics could take a hit in the final form of the game. We'll have to wait and see on that, obviously, but even if that is the case, I think given everything that's going on in this game, that's probably something that will ultimately be pretty forgivable, especially if the game runs well and delivers on its promises of a large, dynamic, expansive, and replayable adventure into this universe. Whether Gotham Knights ends up outdoing the Arkham games is something that will likely come down to your personal taste. If the best part of the Arkham games for you was the grittier, more centralized single-player story, then Gotham Knights might not totally eclipse that for you. It doesn't look like Gotham Knights is reinventing the wheel when it comes to stories in the Batman universe. But at the same time, the good news is that it seems like it will, at the very least, keep pace with the Arkham games, with a story that honors them and doesn't shy away from its gameplay connections to those games. On the flip side of that though, if the Arkham games' dynamic combat and mission variety were what kept you coming back, then Gotham Knights should be a pretty easy sell for you, as it's looking like it's going to have all of what those games offered and more, especially considering that you can have several different flavors of it and share it with a friend. There's a lot to like about what we know so far of Gotham Knights, from the healthy change of pace from the Arkham universe in some areas to the continuation of it in others. It's looking like Gotham Knights is on the right track to be one of the better games in the series, and at the very least, one of the biggest games of this year. And with that, we reached the end of the video. Have anything to say? Let us know in the comments below. Also, we upload new videos every single day on GamingBolt, so please consider subscribing as it really helps us out. Thanks for watching.